with you my presentation, so I will be able to get started.
Yep.
Okay. Is the presentation on the screen? Everything okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So what I will talk about during this session, we incorporate data on personal devices with MAM. I will talk about why bring your own devices is an important problem, an important matter to be managed in the cloud, generally in an IT deployment. I will talk about the device management options that you have with mobile devices, which is basically MDM and MAM. Clearly, I will give you a view on Microsoft Intune. I will talk about specifically APP, the app protection policies, and then I will try to show you how the whole MAM solution applies to practical cases. So I have created a couple of examples that are really similar to the real world ones that I have seen. So, and I will show you how to match the technical solution with the problem. Talking about me, I work for Exponentially. It's a company based in London in the UK. It's an 800 people company. We work on networking, cloud solutions, hosting, and a lot of services. Specifically, I'm part of the professional services. I have been an MVP for a few years in the past. I am a book writer. I like to write books as much as I have time. And also I'm one of the organizers of probably the biggest free conference in Italy, the Be Connected Day. We talk about modern work at least once a year. And this year we had a few hundred people in the room. We rented a whole cinema. So I'm happy about this community effort that me and other friends of mine do every year. Now, let's go and talk about mobiles, and let's talk about what the issue is at the moment. A large part of the companies, let's say 70% of them, but really that probably this number is a little bit conservative. Realistically, it could be even more. But 70% of all the companies around allow bring your own device. So people are able to bring their mobile, their iPhone, Android, whatever they prefer. And they're able to open corporate information and corporate mail and so on from their device. So the problem here is that actually, as a company, you want to have control on the information. On the other side, we are talking about a personal mobile phone. It's not a corporate device. So you are not really allowed to push the limits and the controls that you are able to apply for a corporate device. So that's the big problem here. Are you able to control your corporate data on somebody else's device? This one, I hope that the audio will work. It's literally a few seconds from the news from the BBC. And that's the issue that we are seeing around. There is an enormous amount of mobile devices that are stolen every day. And the target for the people that are stealing the devices is not much the hardware itself, the mobiles, because really often it is easy to block them or make them unusable. Problem is that the target for those people is the data, the information that's in the phone. So your personal banking, your personal information, but also the corporate information that you have on your mobile. So what could go wrong with your mobile having corporate data? A few examples. You could have somebody copying the corporate mail, which has a level of, let's say, sensitivity, from the corporate mail to their own personal mail. And so this way you lose control of the company information. And with them saving the information in their personal cloud or Google Drive, the company data is potentially exposed to any kind of hacking or security problem. It's possible without controls, obviously, to take screenshots of sensitive apps. So somebody could just take screenshots of your financial information, patents, whatever it is, and share them on WhatsApp, on the socials, wherever they want. And also there is a problem about the life cycles of information. What I mean, basically, people that leave the company, for example, an employee, if I don't have a right policy about cleaning the information, the corporate information from their phone, potentially they have still access to Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, you name it. So again, that's a big exposition of my corporate data to somebody that is not allowed to see them or to use them. There is finally an element about regulations. I tried to summarize in this slide the main regulations that are related to mobile devices and bring your own devices around the world. As you can see, from Japan to California to India to the US, everywhere there is now regulations that you have to respect that are exactly pointed to controlling what happens with corporate data and mobile devices. So as somebody that is in charge of managing the mobile devices and access to corporate data, these kind of regulations are really, really relevant. Okay, now I said that we are talking about the need of having a device management. And device management is what allows an organization to manage the devices, giving you the tools. So you have a tool in a standard device management solution that is able to deploy software, update software, manage the settings of the mobile, apply policies, and do monitoring, because it's really, really important to have an interface that actually gives you a well done and well usable, easy to use report of the whole mobile estate. You need also the ability to manage virtual devices, not only the physical ones. And you need some, again, device management solution that allows you to follow the device wherever it is. So that is something that can't be just your local data center or your local network. It must be something more broad, generically speaking, the cloud. You want also automation to deploy features, to check the compliance, the security, and so on. You want a device management solution that allows you to optimize the device for the business, a single point of management for the devices, and also something that allows you to protect the information that are inside the devices. So that's the idea of a device management solution. Every device management solution that you will see around talking about mobiles must have this kind of tools and features inside. The world is complicated from this point of view, because actually, as I said before, we are not just talking about your corporate mobile devices, and so something that you can control 100%, you can eventually wipe everything. We are talking about a world where there are different scenarios. Side by side with the corporate mobile, you have the bring your own devices. We were talking about that. So that's the user device, private device with their pictures, their contacts, everything, where actually they also use your apps, your corporate apps. So side by side. And also there is a third scenario that you have to consider, which is MDM, but managed by a third party. For example, we have a consultant that is working with us. Their company manage their phone, so it's a corporate phone. It's not my corporate phone, so I don't have the controls that I would like to have. And in this case, again, I have to manage it as a external device, as something that works with MIM, with a solution that sits on top of a different MDM that I don't control. And so, to summarize what we said so far, I have two different situations. The one that we are talking about today is the unmanaged devices, bring your own device. So the policy that I create applies only to the apps. So for example, if you have Outlook or Teams installed, and you log into the app with your corporate account, in that case, I want to manage the app. If you are using your personal mail, your phone, your messaging, whatever it is on, let's say, your personal side, I don't want to know what is going on there. I don't have to. So there is a split here between what is work and what is personal. As in a similar scenario as an IT admin, I don't have full control over the device at all. And I have a few requirements that I will explain better in a minute to be able to do this specific management unmanaged devices scenario, which is having Intune SDK or app wrapping. On the other side, I have the managed devices, which are called also enrolled devices. On an enrolled device, I am able to control everything, how the phone behaves, what kind of PIN you are using. For example, think about that. If I have a bring your own device, the user is free to decide if they want to use PIN or they want to use the thumbprint to open the phone, they want to use the Face ID. I can't really dictate what they do with their phone. On the other side, with a corporate phone, with a fully managed phone, yes, I'm able to decide that actually the PIN must be, I don't know, 16 characters or 20, or I want, I don't know, some kind of hardware token. So as you can see, the kind of management that I can do with a fully managed device is really more deep. On top of that, eventually I can still use MAM. So I could have a solution where I use MDM to manage the whole mobile device and MAM to manage the single apps that are running. So to summarize, an MDM solution is always focused on managing the entire device. It allows you to enforce policies, including installing, removing software, blocking everything that is personal, removing data, completely wiping the mobile device, and so on. And clearly, that's something that works on devices that are company-owned. On the other side, we have the MAM solution, Mobile Application Management, which is exactly what we said a minute ago. On a personal device, I'm able to control what happens inside specific apps that I use for work. For example, Outlook, Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint. This is a table from Microsoft that actually explains really well which one is the right situation to use MAM. So if you want to configure specific apps, like Outlook and Teams, if the device is personal, if it is a new device, for example, it's something that you just take out of the box, you start your personal phone, and then you install your work profiles. And in that case, I want to control it. It works both in bulk or small environments. There is no real problem about the numbers. The devices usually are associated with a single user, so the MAM is probably not the best if you have some kind of shared device, like, I don't know, a phone that is shared between more users, and I will show you why. It works even if the device is actually managed by a different MDM provider. And again, usually this is not something that you want to use if it is a corporate school organization device. What I mean is that actually you can use MAM, but on top of a full MDM solution that goes more in deep. Again, there is a URL here that talks about that from Microsoft Learn, so you can eventually deep dive the different aspects. On top of MAM or MDM, or whatever is your solution, the unifying object that you use is Intune. So Intune allows you to manage all the devices, mobiles, but also laptops, desktops, and so on. Allows you to manage those devices from a centralized console, gives you the capability to deploy and update software, change settings and policies, monitor and report the different information, remote administration, optimization, and even work on specific scenarios that include on-prem. I will talk about on-prem a little bit later. Why a company should use Intune compared to a different solution, because clearly on the market there are different software sellers that give you different solutions. Well, Intune is a cloud solution, and that's already a good start, because as we said, I want to be able to manage the devices wherever they are. So being in the cloud means that actually I'm able to follow the devices wherever they go. Obviously, Intune is well integrated with the Microsoft ecosystem, and the native integration includes Entra ID, Microsoft Defender XDR, and the Microsoft 365 apps. Inside Intune, there is also an integration with Autopilot, so the capability to deliver devices to the user from scratch. So you deploy the system, and then with Intune, you are able to actually optimize and set it for corporate usage. There is an intelligence inside Intune that allows you to manage different policies and, let's say, manage where they overlap without having any conflict. And finally, is often included in the Microsoft 365 licenses. And so basically, if you have already the right kind of license in the house, you are not spending additional money, which is important from a cost point of view. Okay, adesso, what are app protection policies? So we talked about MAM, but we still have to clarify what are these APP. So an APP, an app protection policy in Intune, is meant to protect the company data, the company information, inside the single apps. So as you can see, you have your personal space, and then there is a small bit of it that is just work. The device is not enrolled, so the device receives the policies and applies the policies, and that's it. The data protection is applied only on the work stuff, so your personal data is not affected by whatever policy I create. APP is available on iOS, Android, and also on the Windows platforms, which is kind of new, if you want. There are still big limitations on that, but there is support for specific Windows scenarios too. But in this case, we are talking about bring your own devices, so really often iOS and Android is enough to keep you going. With APP, what I can do? Well, block, copy and paste the information to personal apps. So if I'm working inside Teams and corporate Teams, and I want to copy the information inside WhatsApp, I don't know, a message or a picture, I'm able to stop it with the app. I'm able to encrypt the company data. So even if your mobile is not encrypted, because you don't want to encrypt that could be a good motivation, like your phone is an old one and you don't, the hardware is not able to manage a full encryption of the device, or you know that it is going to be really slow if you do that. So you take the risk about not encrypting your data, but I still want to encrypt my corporate data. So I can do it with the APP. I'm able to force PIN or biometric access on the app. And again, interestingly, you're able to manage your phone as you want. You could have no password, no PIN, no biometric control if that's what you like. But when you try to open a corporate profile with Outlook, for example, in that case, I'm going to stop you and say, okay, I need a PIN, I need a biometric access, I need some kind of security. Finally, and that's something that you have only with MAM, MDM is about wiping the whole device. MIM is about deleting the data, wiping the data in a single app. So with MIM and APP, you're able to remove the information, wipe the information remotely inside the company apps. Again, for example, Outlook, Teams, OneDrive, and so on. So the personal information is not affected by that. but the corporate data is going to be safe in case, for example, somebody steals your phone, which was the previous situation. What are the requirements for MIM? So the devices don't have to be enrolled. It's not a requirement. You need the Intune licenses. Again, you have E3, E5, or Intune standalone, for example. You will need apps that are supported by Intune. And we will talk about that in a second. The apps to be supported must be able to work with the Intune SDK. It's a little bit more complex than that. There are two different situations. If we are talking about the usual apps that you install from the Apple App Store or from Google Play, in that case, the SDK is already inside. Plus, if you want to install, to create an app and publish it in the, I don't know, Google Play Store, and you want it to be able to work with Intune, you can write your app with the Intune SDK support inside. So when you publish it on a public marketplace, the support for Intune is already inside, okay? Clearly, as you understand, in this case, I need access to the code. I need to write an app that has the SDK inside. Okay, what if I have a line of business app, a company, a corporate app, I don't have any access to the original code, I can't rewrite it, but I want to control it with Intune, because otherwise this is an app installed on mobile phones on which I don't have any kind of control. Well, in that case, there is something called the Intune app wrapping tool, which is a command line that creates a wrapper around the app. So as I said, I don't need access to the original code. I just need to be able to create an external layer. And this external layer gives to Intune the capability to manage the apps. So MIM, to be an option, to be something that you can use, you need the SDK or you need the wrapping tool. There is not third option. I mean, if you don't have the support for the SDK and you don't use the wrapping tool, Intune is not the solution for you. MIM is not the solution for you. Okay. Now that we explained how Intune uses the SDK and the wrapper, there is an additional layer. Android and iOS, which is not really surprising if you think about that, don't behave in the same way. So if I'm using MIM on iOS, iOS has already this kind of sandbox. So each single app runs by itself if you want. There is no mix. So even if the apps are part of the same company, there is no information flowing directly from one app to the next one. They don't share memory or information. So everything in iOS is already isolated. If you're using standard Microsoft apps like the Office app or Edge, for example, iOS gives you already the version with the SDK built in, which means that actually you don't have to do anything, including installing additional software. Okay, they work, full stop. You can use MIM out of the box as long as somebody is using a corporate profile. What is the only additional work that you have to do? If you have conditional access, and usually you want to have conditional access, I will talk about that, the user must install also the Microsoft Authenticator. And that's the only app that you have to install as an additional effort on iOS. And that's because the conditional access doesn't work on iOS without the conditional access, without the Authenticator app. On Android, things are different, as I said. In Android, actually, you can share inside an app. Information can be moved from one app, one process to the next one. So in this case, to have the full support for MIM, you need to install the company portal app. which is required to install to be able to use the MAM solution and the Intune SDK. The Android apps use a version of SDK that is actually called lightweight, which means that actually in a single app it is possible to have different profiles. So it is not as isolated and sandboxed as the iOS. If you use conditional access, you have to install also the company portal on Android. So again, to summarize, on Android, you need both the company portal. The company portal, you need it for two different targets, Intune SDK, but also conditional access. I talked about conditional access so far. Now, I'm not going to deep dive it because clearly it's a little bit out of our scope. Just to explain why it is important for mobiles. Conditional access is part of Entra, so is all about identity. In conditional access, I'm able to check important information and important settings like user risk, sign-in risk, insider risk, locations. So for example, I can say, okay, I am allowing access to devices only if they are connecting from a network that is actually part of my corporate network. Or if I know that the user is a risky user, because Microsoft keeps this kind of database, dynamic database about the users that have been compromised. In that case, I want to stop them. So this is the kind of control that clearly you don't do on Intune, on MAM, but you want it because actually that's really important. I mean, even before you open the app, you connect the app to my tenant. I want to be sure that your authentication is a proper one, that you are actually not a risk, that you are connecting from a network that I know. And that said, inside conditional access, as a parameter to grant the access, I can say, okay, I'm going to give you the access only if you're using an app that is inside my app protection policies. So I'm checking your user, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to allow, I don't know, external users, yes, from specific networks, yes, users that have no high risk, but all of that, if it is your personal device, I'm checking all the information that I just listed, and also I wanted to have the app protection policy. So conditional access is the first step, even before the whole Intune and APP protection, that actually gives you peace of mind about the fact that the user is not giving you any kind of risk. Okay, so I said that I was going to talk about user cases. Let's say that we have Laura. Laura is a project manager. She travels a lot. She's using her personal iPhone to check email and join Teams meetings. She doesn't really want to go deep into IT configurations. She doesn't want our IT to go into her personal stuff. So to summarize the point of view, she says, well, I'm fine in using the work apps like Outlook and Teams on my iPhone because that's good for me. I mean, I'm traveling, I need them. I want the work data, the work information, absolutely separate from my personal data. I'm okay with a Face ID and a PIN. I don't want to roll my phone because it's my personal phone and I don't want to give you this kind of deep control. Right. As a, let's say, as a summary, what I will deploy here, well, PIN or biometric control. I want that Laura is able to access my company information only using the apps that I allow and I manage. I want to block her phone in case she's playing with jailbroken devices or rooted devices. And also, I want to allow only apps that are actually Intune supported. And that's where the creation of policies happens. In the past, depending on the managed or unmanaged devices, I had different ways to create policies. Right now, there is just one app protection policy creation, which is a single screen where you define which kind of platform you are managing, and then you apply the app policies. So it looks like that. You go into Intune, you go into app protection, you create a new policy, for example, let's say for iOS or Android or Windows. In this case, I'm selecting which apps I want to control. So for example, Excel or, I don't know, Microsoft Lens. In this case, if you look down in the screenshot, I am controlling Teams, OneDrive, and Edge. By the way, if I control Teams, by default, I have to control also OneDrive because they work together. And here is the part about the data transfer control. So I can say that all the informations can travel only between apps that I am managing. So for example, I am able to copy a text or an image from my corporate Teams profile to my corporate Outlook profile. If I try to do the same, I mean, I try to copy my corporate Teams information into my personal email, the policy is going to stop me, okay? I could allow eventually external apps to put information inside my corporate apps and stop the opposite direction. So I could say, okay, I am in need, I don't know, for example, I want to take pictures with my phone or write text with my phone, and then I want to copy the information inside my corporate data. So that's doable, but I can stop the opposite direction too. As you can see, I can stop copy and paste. I can disable screen capture, that's about Android. I can encrypt my corporate data or eventually encrypt all the data if this is a enrolled device. That's not the case on MAM, but that's an option. I can decide which one is your official browser when you use corporate data, in this case, Edge. Here is the part about the PIN. So I can say, okay, I want you to use a 5 digits password, or I want you to use your fingerprint or some kind of biometric control. That's fine. I'm blocking, as I said, jailbroken devices. And by the way, it is not possible to remove these kind of rules. I mean, they are at default. So I can just decide if I just want to block the access or also to wipe corporate data in case a device is jailbroken. And I can add as many additional conditions as I want. Example, really popular example, I don't want Android devices that have an operating system that is older than, I don't know, version 8. Let's take a number. I want to require the device lock to be enabled and so on. Now, when I go to assignment, here there is something important to say. I can assign the policy to a group of users, for example, but if I just apply the policy to a group of users, the reality is that I am hitting a big target, and I don't want to, I don't know, in this case, apply the policy to all the 18 users that are part of the group. Maybe that I want to apply it just for the unmanaged devices. And here we have what is called filtering to help us. So there is something called assignment filters that you can see here that basically says, okay, you have a policy, but actually you have also a list of exclusions or inclusions. So in this case, only iPhone devices that are XR are part of the policy. All the other ones are not included. So I created this kind of filter based on different parameters, and then I apply that. What happens is that even if the policy is meant to be used by a group of 18 users, let's say I create a smaller target, which is just the devices for the 18 users, just for the devices that have specific conditions. For example, I can create a filter and I can say device management equals to unmanaged, which means that actually in the group of the 18 users that we talked about, if 10 of them have a corporate device and 8 of them have the personal bring your own device solution, well, with this filter applied, I'm going to target only the ones that are unmanaged, and you can see it here. Just include in the policy the ones that are inside the filter. The filter was device management unmanaged, so they are not my enrolled corporate devices. Okay, and After I created the policy, there is a really nice monitoring solution inside Intune that says how many users have done a check-in and have the policy applied. So for example, here I had one user that was using OneDrive and Teams on their personal device. What is the user experience to explain what happens on the other side? When the user installs the app, they go on the App Store, they install the app, they create their corporate profile. So for example, on Android, I could have 2 or 3 different profiles for the app. And one is my personal mail, one is, I don't know, another personal mail that is in my family, and then I have the corporate mail. When I open the corporate mail, well, in that case, I have this message that says, okay, I have applied that list of controls, your device is okay for the corporate data, but for corporate access, I want you to use a PIN. So create a PIN just for the corporate apps, okay? This is not about your phone, your personal phone, whatever you use, I don't care. This is just for the corporate Outlook, corporate Teams, and so on. And here you go. In this case, the user is able to open Teams and work. Okay, another scenario which allows me to explain 2 additional important information. Maya works as a business development person. She uses her own phone for work and communication. She needs to open also on-prem resources. Again, we are talking about her personal phone, okay? She is not a technical IT person. She says, I use my phone for personal stuff and work stuff, so there is a mix. If I lose my phone, I want to be sure that the corporate data are safe. I'm okay with the corporate IT removing corporate data. Thank you. And I also want to be sure that if I download something risky, the work information are safe. Sometimes I need to open on-prem internal apps or resources. And so I need some kind of a safe way to do that. I don't want to enroll my device. I don't want to lose time on enrollment. So what are the requirements here? 2 different requirements, selective wipe and tunnel for mobile application management. Let me explain. Wipe, if I am managing a personal device with MAM, what I can do is go inside Intune, go into the selective wipe and say, okay, create a wipe request for, in this case was Maya phone, and say, okay, she has a Samsung and 2 different phones with the corporate apps. I want to delete all the corporate information from them. And that's it. I just run the wipe. I will see it pending for as much time as required. And then as soon as the mobile phone wiped the information, I will have the confirmation in the screen. That's really easy. On the user side, what I see is that at some point the apps close themselves and I'm not able to access again the corporate data. Microsoft Tunnel. So I said she has a mobile phone, a personal phone, but she needs access to on-prem information in my corporate data center. Microsoft Tunnel is a solution that gives you access without a full VPN installation. Is a per app access, which means that actually every single app that I include in the Microsoft Tunnel will create a tunnel to my corporate on-prem data center. Okay, so I could have apps that are allowed to access the on-prem and other apps that don't have to do that. So it's a per app solution. And it is integrated also with conditional access, so I can apply all the different controls that we talked about. Is a solution now, I'm not going to go into the details, but it is based on the integration between Intune and a container that has to be installed in a Linux machine. And clearly the Linux machine has to be sitting inside my on-prem deployment, sorry. And so what happens is that actually the user is able to run the VPN, connect to the VPN server that's inside my corporate network and go around to access the resources that they need. So the steps are, I do the configuration in Intune, I created the site, I created the tunnel. This is a solution that actually supports more than 1 node. So You can create more than one container, more than one server, VPN server. And then when the user wants to access, they go to Entra, they get their authentication, they go to Intune, Intune applies whatever policy is required for the tunnel, and then finally the user is able to enter inside the corporate network. As you can see, it's a split network solution. So a part of the traffic goes to the internet, a part of the traffic goes to the inside network. It's classic split. You need a public IP and a certificate to make it work, because clearly you are exposing the external end of a tunnel. It's really easy to monitor because it's part of Intune. So in the tenant administrator, you will see the Microsoft Tunnel gateway with health information, so many people are connected, and so on. How do I deploy it with MAM is a part of the app protection policy. So if I have, I don't know, for example, Teams or OneDrive that have to open also the on-prem network, I can say, okay, start Microsoft Tunnel connection on app launch. So every time you open your corporate profile in OneDrive, I will give you also access to the VPN, and you can see the internal files and documents, okay? Again, personal devices with apps installed are able to go in a trusted way. The user has no control on that, has no need to know it, but you have access to the on-prem. What are the requirements? As Azure subscription, plan 1 or plan 2, depending on what kind of Intune sub-plan you have. You need a Linux server that could be Red Hat or a different one, sitting inside your data center, of course. You need a certificate, you need devices that run Android or iOS. Again, the world is not the same for Android and iOS. There is a list of limitations for the Microsoft Tunnel related to MAM, in case you're using Android or in case you're using iOS. There is a URL again in this slide that gives you the Microsoft page where you can deep dive all the information about the Microsoft Tunnel and MAM. And that was for me. So let me close this one. I don't know if there is any question. We have literally not much time.
Obviously, you're at the top of the hour.
Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. I will leave the space for the next speaker then.